Hello everyone, I just checked into my room here at Stanford. It's where I'm going to be spending the next couple of days, next week or so, here at the Stanford Graduate School of Business, learning about social entrepreneurship. I'm super excited about what's about to unfold. So I'm really excited for you to join me on this journey as I explore innovation, design thinking, social entrepreneurship, mission, vision, strategy, executing business plans, hiring the right people, making sure that we build a really sustainable business. And I'm here to do it so I can learn as much as I possibly can, bring it back to Australia with Burn Bright. So join me on this journey. It's going to be a lot of fun and I'm really looking forward to taking you on this journey as well. Just finished my first class here at Stanford. The first class was all about vision, mission, and strategy, and how do we articulate those three things back to our teams, to our stakeholders, to people we're serving, and to our communities. We identified vision as being, what does the world look like now that your company's existed in the future? What is the problem that we're trying to solve? We identified mission as being, what is your organization's reason for being? Who are you serving, and how are you doing that in direction of your vision? We identified strategy as being, what is the economic value of your organization and how do you economically provide for the work that you're doing? Those three things together was really helpful to try and frame how we look at vision, mission, and strategy at Burn Bright, and how we can even more clearly articulate those things so that we can all be on the same page as a community. And I really enjoyed thinking about that and exploring that and knowing that more. Our second session at Stanford studying social entrepreneurship was around the power of our story. It was really encouraging for us to start sharing stories about our organizations and about who we are, and I think the power of story is something that I've learned so much over the last 5 years working with Burn Bright. In this class we talked about how do we collect and how do we use stories and storytelling for the benefit of our organization, and how do we use stories to engage consumers, to engage external people, how do we use stories to keep our story at Burn Bright alive. It was fascinating to hear the stories from other people in my class, and it was also fascinating thinking and knowing and hearing about some of the ideas and psychology behind storytelling and how helpful it can be in bringing people towards your vision and towards your mission. And that was really enjoyable. Session number 3 was all about scaling impact and how we can scale the excellence that we already in our organizations. I found this session absolutely fascinating. It was really interesting and a really different approach on how we can scale, which has been something and one of the reasons why I'm here, to learn how we can continue to scale the impact at Burn Bright. So what I took out of this session and what I took out of this lesson was fascinating, that often when we're scaling, or all the time when we're scaling, we have to subtract rather than add. And quite often scaling is about reinventing ourselves and finding new ways to the business model as we're growing through the different scaling stages. And that scaling is an issue that all organizations face, and it's how we approach scaling through subtraction, but also forecasting into the future and working out what are going to be the things that are going to work well and what are going to be the things that aren't going to work well, and how do we forecast those and address those issues before they even come up. What I really took out of this was this whole idea of often what we need to do is drop off the things that used to work that don't work anymore and continue building on the new things that do work. So scaling is about subtraction and also about kind of looking into the future just enough so we can predict the problems that are going to come up with our new model, and we can create a hypothesis that we can test within our business and within our organization to help us scale successfully. So heaps of cool things for me to take away and heaps of cool things to Burn Bright to learn about in terms of scaling and how we scale well and how we can scale for impact moving forward the next couple of years of Burn Bright. So I'm really looking forward to going on that journey. So session number 4 was all about impact investing. So probably something that I have no idea about. I learned a heap. I learned about how investing works in the economic climate and in the economic market. I learned about how we can use investments for social good and how we need to find the balance between return on profit or return on capital with the balance of social good, which is a really, really interesting dichotomy and something that plays out constantly within the market. And I learned how we can use investment to create social good. It was really interesting. I've never done anything on investing before, or impact investing especially. So I was fascinated by the way in which we can use investment and we can use capital and we can use people wanting to create a return on their investment to also create social good within their organizations as well. So maybe that's a space that we can keep on exploring back in Australia. Session number 5 was on design thinking, and I was able to put my design thinking learning from before into action. Today we use design thinking to try and solve an issue or a problem that exists within our existing companies, and we helped other people to do the same by going through the design methodology and the design process, where we were able to use empathy conversations, where we were able to build an understanding and awareness of what everybody's situations in their business was, and then we were able to design solutions based upon what they needed for their organizations. It was really fun. We built prototypes, we engaged with each other, we had some really cool conversations. So it was a stack of fun. I really enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed the creative aspect of problem solving within business, and the creative aspect of problem solving within organizations was really fascinating. Session number 6 was about how we balance business and social objectives with each other and the tension that has to play between those two things. So we talked about how as social entrepreneurs, we want to try and make money for our businesses, but at the same time we want to have a social impact. And so how does the money and the legitimacy of our business interrelate? And how do we make sure that those two things are in check? Because there's a constant tension between the two. We also talked about the phase of discovery and how it's really important for us to create the right environments within our organizations to ensure that we allow discovery to happen and mistakes to happen, so we can learn from those mistakes and we can continue to keep on growing and growing throughout our organizations to make sure that the environment is right. finally talked about this idea that as leaders, it's really important for us to make sure that we are focused not on the execution, but we're focused on the bigger picture to make sure that we can keep those two things in check and that we can keep on making sure that tension is healthy, but to make sure that we can provide legitimacy for the people who care about what we do, and we can continue to have a sustainable revenue source for our organization. Session number 7 at my time here at Stanford studying social entrepreneurship. Session number 7 was about how, as social entrepreneurs, we need to be amphibious in the sense that we need to be working out how can we bring ideas from different industries and different locations together and find a different mix of people so that we can have ideas that kind of mesh together that wouldn't normally be seen to go together, and how can we capitalize on people with different experience and different skill sets to ensure that we're building ideas that are innovative for the future and that are solving really complex problems through mashing together different types of ideas, different business structures, different ways of operating, different products, different services that you wouldn't normally expect that actually really well fit into an organization's ability to serve the people that they're there to exist to serve. Just finished session number 8, which was all about how do we build systems to measure the impact that we're having, and we explored this idea of a theory of change and how can we make sure that we're meeting the needs of the people who we're serving, and how do we develop a theory of change and then measure the impact of that theory of change that we developed. Talked about how making sure it's important to have a hypothesis that we're constantly testing, and we're constantly making sure that we are able to measure that hypothesis and keep on changing it and inventing it again if we need to make sure that the impact we're having is sustainable and also scalable.
So we just finished class number 9. It was all about decision making and how we influence and impact our decisions, and how we make sure we put ourselves in the right mindset for decision making, but also how do we create an environment for our team where we can create great decisions together as a team. It was really interesting. It was focused on the brain chemicals and brain science, and how do we reduce cortisol and how do we increase serotonin and dopamine within our organizations to create environments where we feel comfortable to make great decisions. I found that fascinating, and it was a great way to finish our final class. So sadly, all good things must come to an end. My time here at Stanford Graduate School of Business is now finished. I've had the most incredible experience. I've met so many wonderful people. I've heard so many great stories. I've learnt so much about running a social enterprise, scaling a social enterprise, and how we can use the connections that we have in the room with all these other wonderful organizations to better the world. I'm really excited about what the future looks like. Thank you so much for supporting me in this journey. I couldn't have done it without each and every one of my supporters and people who care about me, so thank you so much, and I'm really excited for what's up next.